Discover the incredible secret to ignoring him the right way. He'll become amazingly attached. The heart of Maplewood thumped steadily beneath the warm glow of its diner, cradling Sarah in its folds on this bustling Saturday morning. Amidst the clatter of dishes and the laughter ringing between familiar faces, she flipped pancakes, each one a little emblem of her battle. The gentle hum of life enveloped her, a soothing reminder that while the world felt endless, her responsibilities felt infinite. Yet, as Sarah worked, her eyes flickered to the door. Jake, her towering 15-year-old, was peeling off his coat, another reminder of how grown he was much too quickly for her heart to keep pace, but today, everything shifted when Ryan walked in. The moment their eyes connected, a spark shot through her, igniting a buried hope deep in her chest. He radiated warmth, that carefree spirit practically glowing around him like a halo. The world outside faded as the chatter around her blurred into nothing but background noise. She felt that jolt of something precious and dangerous, yet fear circled like a hawk. The scars of past heartbreaks closed tightly around her heart, whispering warnings. With her fierce loyalty to Jake to consider and a belief that love was a luxury they couldn't afford, retreating into an emotional bunker felt like the safest thing to do. She pulled herself away from the magnetic pull of Ryan's smile and shielded her heart with busyness. As the days rolled by, Ryan became a regular. He peppered her with questions, drawing her out from her carefully constructed cocoon. Each interaction chipped away at her stoic facade, threads of connection weaving in between pancakes and coffee. The regulars at the heart of Maplewood noticed gentle nudges, knowing looks exchanged among them. Their silent encouragement filled the diner, urging her to open up, just a little. Then came the storm, wild and unexpected, sweeping through Maplewood with fierce winds and cold rain. The community rallied, and the heart of Maplewood transformed into an emergency shelter. Sarah hustled, energy surging through her as she organized makeshift beds and cups of hot cocoa. In the chaos, she felt a power she hadn't tapped into in years. Each moment of helping, each bond forming between neighbors reignited a flicker of humanity that had dimmed under her resolute shell. With the rain pouring down, washing away the debris of the past, Sarah found herself sandbagging alongside Ryan. Water splashed around them, the fierce determination in his eyes matched only by the tenderness in his voice. In those frantic hours, she witnessed human resilience, the sacrifices made, the overwhelming support echoing like a chorus of hope. It rocked her very core. As they leaned side by side, heartbeats synchronizing in the midst of the storm's chaos, she was overcome. Could a second chance at love truly be worth the risk? Emotion swirled within her like the storm outside. She stood at the edge of something beautiful and terrifying, caught between the instinct to hold Jake protected and the undeniable longing to embrace connection, a feeling she thought lost forever. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the storm started to relent, a calm enveloped Maplewood. In that soft hush, a miracle lingered, waiting for her to reach out. Just as uncertainty welled within her, Ryan stood before her, his gaze filled with vulnerability. Was he brave enough to take a chance on her? On them? Now Sarah faced the paradox of her heart once again. Would she allow the love that had once hurt her to bloom, or would she continue to hide behind her barricades? The air felt charged, thick with unspoken words as Sarah stood frozen. Ryan's eyes searched hers, full of hope and something deeper. She could hear the soft patter of rain on the roof, a soothing backdrop to the tempest of her thoughts. Everything in her wanted to lean into this moment, to step forward into the light he offered, but the shadows of her past clawed at her throat. "Sarah," he said softly, breaking the silence that stretched like an elastic band ready to snap. "We've been through a lot today. I just want to know, how do you really feel?" His question hung between them, heavy and electric. Thoughts raced through her mind. She remembered the fractures of past relationships, the nights spent in tears, and the promises that had turned to ashes. The fear of losing herself again made her pulse race with anxiety. "Ryan," she started, her voice trembling. He took a tentative step closer, his hands open, palms up, as if inviting her to share her fears. She struggled to find the right words, the perfect balance. Her mind screamed to guard her heart cried out for a chance. In that moment, the storm outside mirrored the storm within her. Just as she opened her mouth to speak, Jake stepped into view. Soaking wet from the rain with an anxious look plastered on his face, he called out, "Mom! I need your help." The interruption felt like a lifeline, pulling her back from the edge of vulnerability. With a bittersweet relief, she turned her back on Ryan and moved toward Jake, her heart a heavy weight in her chest. This was her reality. Focusing on her son felt like the safest decision. "Jake," she said, wrapping an arm around him as they entered the bustling diner that had become their community's refuge. "What's wrong?" He grabbed her hand tightly. "I can't find Dad. He said he'd be back by now, and I'm worried." Panic settled over Sarah like a dark cloak. In all this chaos, she had lost track of time and the certainty of the people she loved. "I'm sure he is fine," she reassured him, though doubts gnawed at her. "Let us look for him together." As they moved through the crowd, she couldn't shake the feeling of Ryan's gaze on her. She caught a glimpse of him at the edge of the shelter, his features drawn tight with concern but also understanding. He wasn't pushing her, he was waiting. But what was she waiting for? She held on to Jake, who looked up at her, finding comfort in her presence. She wanted desperately to offer him the safety of a mother's love, yet her heart was filled with another kind of longing. What was she doing? How could she dance on the edge of a precipice? Finally, she spotted a familiar face. It was Doug, Jake's father, stepping through the doors, drenched but alive, relief flooding Sarah's chest. "I'm here, buddy," he called, kneeling down to embrace Jake. The flood of relief washed over her, but it left her more confused than ever. Ryan's quiet strength lingered in her mind, blending with the chaotic emotions surrounding her. Was she ready to move beyond her past, beyond her fears? After everything she had witnessed from the community, perhaps there was more to life than just safety, but just as the thought settled in her mind, she felt the pull of uncertainty again. She watched Jake rush to his father, but her heart lingered at the diner entrance where Ryan still stood, a reminder of what could be. As the rain resumed, steady against the windows, she felt the weight of a decision loom above her like dark clouds ready to release their storm. In that moment, she realized she could no longer ignore this choice. Would she lean into the storm of her emotions, brave enough to let love in, or would she retreat once again? With one last look back at Ryan, she took a deep breath, steeling herself. The path ahead was still unclear, but one thing was certain: the next step she took would change everything. The sound of laughter and the smell of freshly brewed coffee enveloped Sarah as she turned back toward Jake and Doug. Her heart swirled with confusion and relief. She watched as Jake jumped into Doug's arms, both of them laughing, the weight of the world seemingly lifting off their shoulders. It was seconds like these that reminded her of the simple joys of family, yet the shadow of her internal battle loomed just outside her periphery. "Where were you?" Jake asked, a hint of precious worry still fluttering in his voice. "I got caught in the rain," Doug replied, ruffling Jake's wet hair. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "But I promised I wouldn't leave you waiting." The connection between them was evident, warm and comforting. In that moment, Sarah felt a pang of longing. She loved Doug, he was the father of her child. Yet, uncertainty and heartache had created distance between them. She stole another glance at Ryan. He stood in the gathering gloom of the diner's entrance, hands tucked in his pockets, observing the family reunion with a mix of longing and hesitation. The way he watched her drew her in like a lighthouse in the fog. She felt the magnetic pull of his presence but forced herself to look away, returning her focus to her son. Mom, can we get chocolate milkshakes? Jake chirped, tugging her hand to break her stupor. Of course, buddy. She smiled, grateful for the distraction. They moved toward the counter, dodging tables filled with the murmurs of community members, discussing their next steps, sharing stories, and rebuilding bonds. As she placed the order, she caught sight of Ryan again, now leaning against the wall, arms crossed. The rain dripped in steady drops from the awning, creating puddles outside. In this bustling refuge, she felt isolated in her emotions. Sarah's focus shifted, her heart fluttering nervously. She wanted Ryan to step closer, to reach out, but fear still held her in chains. You okay, Mom? Jake's innocent voice jerked her back to reality. Yeah, sweetheart, she replied, forcing a smile. I'm just thinking. About Dad? He asked, his big eyes searching her face. About everything, she admitted quietly. How could she explain to him the complexities of love, heartache, and the choices she faced? Just then, Doug approached, holding the milkshakes and offering them to Jake, who grabbed his eagerly. I think Jake's hyped up enough as it is, he joked, swiping a sip himself as laughter erupted between them. Watching them, Sarah felt a twinge of sadness. She wanted this closeness, this connection, but her gaze instinctively flickered back to Ryan. Why was it so hard to untangle her heart from the past while attempting to reach for a future that felt as elusive as clouds in the sky? Let us sit by the window, Doug suggested, pointing to a table that overlooked the rain-soaked street. We can watch the world as it goes by. As they settled into their seats, Sarah's heart thudded. Doug was trying, she knew that, but it felt like they were just circling the past rather than facing it. And then there was Ryan, the wild card whose presence unsettled everything she thought she knew about love. With each sip of the cold milkshake, Sarah tried to push aside the flood of emotions. She focused on her son's laughter, the warmth of Doug's shoulder beside her, but in a corner of her mind, that yearning for something more simmered just beneath the surface. Suddenly, a loud clap of thunder broke through, shaking the diner and causing everyone to look up. Sarah's heart raced as she realized this was more than just a storm outside, it was a reflection of the turmoil within her. Would she allow the thunder to scare her back into hiding, or let it drive her to seek the light? In that electric moment, she knew she had to confront her feelings. She couldn't go on living in this fog, circling between her past and a potential future. But could she gather the courage to face it? Later that night, with the rain still beating against the diner windows, she made a decision that would propel her into the unknown, unsure of the path ahead. And what it might demand of her. Would she take that leap towards Ryan, risking everything for a chance at love again? As they finished their milkshakes, Sarah felt her heart pounding against her ribs like a drum, drowning out the noise of the diner. The lingering sweetness of chocolate mingled with the tension in the air. Doug's laughter had begun to fade into the background, overshadowed by the thoughts racing in her mind. Every time she glanced at Ryan, a flame ignited within her, and every moment of connection with Doug felt heavy with unspoken words. Hey, Sarah, are we going to talk about tonight? Doug asked suddenly, breaking her thoughts. His brow furrowed, and the warmth in his eyes felt like a distant memory. Tonight? She echoed, her voice scarcely above a whisper. Yeah. The town meeting. I know how important it is to you. Jake was busy stirring his empty milkshake cup, oblivious to the tension creeping in. She nodded slowly, torn between a longing for stability and the throbbing, chaotic energy she felt pulsing towards Ryan. Right, of course. But even as she spoke, doubt clouded her mind. What was she going to say? Were they united as they faced the town's critical moment, or was she simply lingering on the edge, waiting for something or someone else? Mom? Jake's innocent question shattered the silence. Are you okay? You look like you're gonna float away. With a practiced smile, Sarah turned toward him. I'm fine, buddy. Just thinking a lot. She brushed her fingers through his hair, relishing in the joy he still found in simplicity. But even as she touched him, her heart felt heavy. "Maybe you should go talk to Ryan," Jake suggested without any hint of hesitation. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. How could he so innocently pinpoint the very heart of her turmoil? She stole a glance at Ryan, who was still by the entrance, now watching them with an intensity that made her stomach flip. Okay, she stood, looking down at Jake and Doug. "I'll be right back." "I'll come," Doug said, his eyes wide with concern. "No, I've got this." The words came flowing out before she could think twice. She felt the pull of the storm brewing inside her, urging her to take a step beyond familiar shores. As she approached Ryan, the echoes of laughter faded away, leaving only the sound of her heart thudding in her ears. The warm scent of coffee was replaced by the dampness of the rain outside, mingling with something electric in the air. "Hey," she said softly, trying to steady her voice. "Hey," Ryan replied, pushing away from the wall. His hands were still tucked in his pockets, but he looked ready to unburden himself. "I was hoping you would come over. I wanted to check on you." "Thanks," she said, feeling oddly vulnerable under his gaze. "It's just been a long day." He shifted his weight, signaling a shared discomfort hovering between them. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything." Her heart quickened, and she felt her cheeks flush. He was daring to cross that boundary, but could she? Could she handle what that really meant? "Us?" she repeated, not quite ready to engage. Her voice trembled, as if testing the waters. "Yeah. I know you're with Doug, but we had something special, didn't we?" The air thickened around them, and Sarah's mind raced. There was yearning in his voice, an honesty that pulled at her heart. It was familiar but raw, everything she craved yet feared. "Things changed, Ryan. She faltered, glancing back at Doug and Jake at their table, where Jake was bouncing excitedly in his seat. "I don't want to hurt anyone. But what about your happiness?" His voice lowered, as if he could bridge the gap between them with sincerity. "You deserve to be happy." At that moment, the weight of her choices pressed down like a fist against her heart. Was she ready to reach out and seize it? The storm outside raged on, echoing the tempest inside her. "Do you really think it's possible?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper, vulnerability dripping from every word. Ryan stepped closer, their worlds colliding. "I believe in us, Sarah. But you have to believe in yourself." The world around her seemed to fade away, leaving only the palpable tension, the flickering hope that maybe, just maybe, she could shape her life anew. Would she be ready to embrace that new reality, or would she slip back into the safety of her past? The silence hung heavy between them, charged with a mixture of hope and fear. Sarah took a step back, her heart racing. The warmth radiating from Ryan felt like danger, seductive yet frightening. "I need time," she heard herself say, her voice barely cracking a whisper. Ryan stared at her, disappointment flickering in his eyes. "I understand. But I don't want you to close the door on us without even considering it." Sarah nodded, trapped in a storm of emotions. She wanted to scream, to laugh, to cry all at once. The conflict churned inside her like the dark clouds above, ready to burst. I don't know, Ryan. It's complicated. I have Jake to think about. Doug, are you happy with him?" Ryan's question was direct, sharp enough to cut through the haze. The question lodged itself in her throat, and for a moment, she couldn't breathe. Doug had been steady, dependable, a safety net. But the thrill of the unknown, the way her pulse quickened with Ryan, painted a different picture entirely. "Sometimes, I wonder if I'm just settling," she admitted, surprised by her own honesty. "Then don't settle. You owe it to yourself to find what makes your heart sing, not just survive." His voice was a gentle challenge, and it sent a flicker of doubt into her mind. Before she could respond, the door of the diner swung open, and a gust of cold wind swept in, carrying the scent of impending rain. Doug stepped inside, shaking droplets off his jacket. His eyes darted around the room, landing on them, and Sarah's heart sank. "Hey! What is going on?" he called, bright and cheerful, forcing her into a mask of normalcy. She stood frozen, caught between two worlds, safe and familiar with Doug, or tumultuous and thrilling with Ryan. "Just catching up," she replied, her voice losing its authenticity. She cast a quick glance back at Ryan, who stood silently, tight-lipped. His presence felt electric, and she wondered if Doug sensed the tension. "Good. We should all head out soon. The meeting is about to start." Doug beamed, oblivious to the internal battle raging inside her. "Right," she said weakly, trying to regain her composure as a cloud of guilt settled over her shoulders. Ryan's eyes searched hers, holding a promise she wasn't sure she was ready to take. "Can we talk later?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah, I'll find you," she promised, though her heart sank at the thought. How could she reconcile what was simmering between them with the life she had built? Ryan nodded slowly, then took a step back, his expression dimming into something unreadable. It felt like watching something precious slipping away. Doug wrapped an arm around her shoulder, pulling her close. "Let's get ready to make our voices heard tonight, okay? We're all in this together." Together. The word echoed in her mind as they walked toward the exit. Sarah's heart felt heavy, filled with unresolvable contradictions. Would she be able to stand up at the meeting, speak her truth, when everything inside her felt split in two? Outside, the rain had started, soft drops beginning to tumble, setting the stage for what was bound to be an emotional evening. As they stepped into the storm, she glanced back one last time at Ryan, standing alone, a figure carved against the darkening sky. Their eyes locked for a heartbeat, and in that instant, she felt the undeniable connection thrum between them. Could she truly ignore it? Would she be brave enough to confront the truth within her heart while standing before the crowd? The answer seemed just out of reach, yet the path to discovery loomed ever closer. The rain picked up, drumming on the pavement like her anxious heartbeat. As Sarah and Doug walked through the growing downpour, Sarah felt a swirling mix of emotions. Part of her was excited about the impending meeting, while another part was stuck in the moment she shared with Ryan, replaying its every detail. "Are you ready?" Doug asked, brushing droplets from his brow. His enthusiasm clashed with the weighty turmoil in her gut. "Yeah, I'm fine," she murmured, but her voice lacked conviction. A few moments later, they reached the community center where the meeting was set to take place. The atmosphere buzzed with energy, familiar faces greeted them with nods and smiles, their chatter echoing through the hall. As they entered, Sarah's eyes darted around, looking for Ryan, as if he might appear at any moment, ready to spark that electricity all over again. "Let's grab a seat," Doug suggested, leading her toward the front. They settled in, and Sarah fought to focus on the proceedings, but her mind kept wandering. The room began to fill up rapidly. People she knew stood chatting, their presence a mixture of camaraderie and dread. Sarah couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that she needed to find Ryan before the meeting started. She stole a glance at Doug, who was animatedly discussing the agenda with a neighbor, his focus elsewhere. "Excuse me, I'll be right back," she said, forcing a smile as she squeezed past him and moved toward the back of the room. Once there, she spotted Ryan standing alone, leaning against the wall, his expression thoughtful. Her breath hitched at the sight of him. The pull was undeniable, a magnetic force drawing her closer. As if sensing her approach, Ryan turned, his eyes locking onto hers, and in that instant, the world around them faded away. "Hey," he said softly, his voice cutting through the noise pulsing in her ears. "Hey," she replied, her heart pounding. "I thought you'd want to talk," he continued, his tone expectant yet cautious. About earlier she hesitated, feeling exposed. "I just don't know what to do." Ryan stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking as the noise faded further. "You don't have to decide everything right now. Just tell me where your head is at, Sarah." His vulnerability struck her, and for a moment, she wanted to reach out, to close the gap, to bridge the emotional chasm between them. "I feel like I'm being pulled in two different directions," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've got Doug and this life I've built, but with you there's something more." "And it scares you," he said, his gaze locked onto hers, searching for answers. "Yes. It's like I'm standing at a crossroads, and I don't know which path to take. Maybe it's okay to be scared. It just means something matters." Ryan's words felt like a lifeline amidst her swirling thoughts. At that moment, someone called out for attention, breaking the delicate bubble they were in. The meeting kicked off with introductions and announcements, pulling Sarah back into the present. She glanced over at Doug, who looked back at her with a soft smile, completely unaware of the tempest stirring inside her. "Guess we have to get back," she sighed, feeling the weight return to her heart. "Yeah," Ryan said, but he lingered for a moment longer, their eyes locking fiercely. "I'll be here when you're ready." As Sarah walked back to Doug, she felt the budding uncertainty swell within. How could she ignore what was growing between her and Ryan? How could she move forward when her heart was still entangled in the past? Doug reached for her hand, beaming with a genuine warmth that felt both comforting and suffocating. "Everything's going to be fine," he said, and Sarah forced a smile in response. The meeting commenced, yet her mind was elsewhere, lost between the safety of what she knew and the thrilling uncertainty that Ryan represented. As discussions turned heated and engaging, Sarah felt a sudden swell of courage rise within her. Now was the time to speak her truth. Could she find the strength to share her voice in front of everyone, despite the chaos in her heart? With trembling hands and a racing heart, she took a deep breath, ready to pull herself from the shadows. What she didn't see was Ryan watching her, anticipation flickering in his eyes, silently willing her to be brave. Would she summon the courage to unveil the layers of her heart, or would she let this moment slip away, like fog in the morning light? As the discussion circled around the room, Sarah felt the weight of eyes on her, the air thick with expectation. Her heart thudded as she realized this was her chance to break free, to step into the light and claim her voice. But the fear gripped her, threatening to push her back into the safety of silence. Doug, still engrossed in the conversation, leaned forward, his focus entirely on the speaker. It was as if he were a beacon, shining with confidence and comfort, even as shadows loomed around Sarah. She inhaled deeply, her chest tight with a mix of resolve and uncertainty. The speaker, a community leader with an awe-inspiring presence, shared stories of transformation and courage. One by one, attendees began to share their thoughts, discussing their own struggles and victories. Each voice floated around her, stirring something deep inside. The fear of judgment, of vulnerability, began to dissolve, if only slightly. Then the moment came. The facilitator turned to Sarah, a slight smile illuminating his face. "Sarah, do you want to share something with us?" he asked, his voice warm and inviting. Her heart raced. Every part of her wanted to leap from her chair and speak, but another part wavered, enticing her to retreat. I don't know if," she murmured, glancing quickly at Doug, who offered an encouraging nod, oblivious to the emotional tempest surging within her. With a deep breath, she rose, her legs unsteady like freshly walked limbs. "Maybe I do have something to say," she managed, her voice shaky but growing steadier with each syllable as she faced the crowd. "Take your time," the facilitator encouraged, and Sarah sensed the warmth in the room, a collective pulse of empathy in their eyes. "It's just," she paused again, the world narrowing down to her and Ryan, standing in the back, his presence electric. "I feel like I'm torn between different lives, between safety and what's unknown." Each word weighed heavy with meaning, echoing her internal struggles. "You're not alone." A voice called from the crowd, followed by nods and murmurs of agreement. A wave of warmth swept over her. "I'm with someone who loves me, and I care for him. But there's also someone else, someone who makes my heart race just by being near." She felt the heat rise in her cheeks, vulnerability cracking open her facade. "It feels wrong, but I can't shake it off. I don't know which way to turn." The silence in the room felt alive. The tension was palpable, a mixture of surprise and understanding. Some faces mirrored her struggle, others reflected a quiet curiosity. Suddenly, a chuckle broke the silence. "You're not the first to feel that way." An older woman responded, her voice filled with warmth. "Love is complicated. Sometimes it pushes us to confront our deepest fears." Sarah nodded, encouraged by the honesty and connection being built around her. The atmosphere shifted, it became lighter as more people began to share their own stories of love, conflict, and resolution. But through it all, Sarah's thoughts remained entangled with Ryan. What would happen after this? Would sharing her truth change everything? Would it bring her clarity or push her further into chaos? After an intense hour, as the meeting wound down, Doug turned to her with a proud grin. "You were great. I knew you had it in you," he said, his voice full of admiration, but Sarah's heart was still racing, her thoughts turning towards Ryan. She saw him lingering at the edge of the group, watching her. His gaze held a mixture of longing and hope, igniting a flicker deep within her. "Thanks," she replied, her mind still swirling with the warmth of recognition, but her heart still tethered to her dilemma. Was she ready to embrace the uncertainty Ryan represented, or would she continue to bury those feelings beneath the surface? As the crowd thinned and conversations lingered, the choices before her loomed larger. With that weight pressing on her, Sarah turned back toward Ryan. "Let us talk," she breathed, her heart trembling with both fear and hope. The path would be unclear, but she was determined to face whatever came next. The moment hung between them, electric and charged. Would she take the plunge and allow her heart to lead her into the unknown? As Sarah's words hung in the air, she felt both the thrill and terror of what lay ahead. Ryan stepped closer, his expression serious yet soft, as if he understood the tangled emotions coursing through her. "Sure, let us find a quiet place to talk," he said, gesturing toward a corner where a few chairs stood apart from the departing crowd. The moment she followed him felt surreal. Each step resonated with her heartbeat. Was she truly willing to spill her heart out? In that quiet corner, the noise of the room faded, replaced by the sound of their breaths mingling, charged with unspoken words. "Listen," Sarah Ryan began, running a hand through his hair, his usual charm replaced by a nervousness that sparked something in her chest. "I've felt that there's something between us. I didn't know you had these feelings, too." A mix of relief and dread crashed over her. Here they were, on the brink of something that could either deepen their connection or unravel everything. "What should we do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The gravity of her situation slammed into her. She had Doug to think about, his affection, the stability he offered. But then there was Ryan, restless and electrifying, the thrill of the unknown wrapped around him like a cloak. "I think we should explain how we feel," Ryan replied, his eyes searching hers. "It's not fair to either of us to hide what's there." She hesitated, torn. Clarity danced just out of reach. But what if it complicates things? What about Doug? The name felt heavy on her tongue. She had respected their relationship, but the truth was burning in her chest now. Ryan stepped closer, his voice dropping in warmth. "It already is complicated. But wouldn't it feel better to face it than to pretend it doesn't exist?" The temptation to agree gnawed at her. She felt drawn to Ryan like never before, as if every moment shared had been leading to this. Yet the thought of hurting Doug, the man who had been a steady presence in her life, anchored her uncertainty. "Okay," she said at last, her heart racing. "But we'll talk to Doug together. I can't do this behind his back." Ryan's expression softened, admiration spreading across his features. "That's fair. You're kind and brave. I respect that." But deep down, a gnawing doubt twisted like a vine in her mind. Could she really be that brave? The chatter of the room faded back in as they returned, but Sarah's focus shifted. She felt a bittersweet mix of fear and courage, knowing the moment they stepped back into the crowd, everything could change. Would Doug be able to understand? Would they all come out stronger, or would this lead to unbearable pain? As Sarah and Ryan approached the group, the atmosphere felt tense, charged with anticipation. She spotted Doug, still talking animatedly with some other attendees, oblivious to the storm brewing just a few feet away. "Sarah, are you all right?" Doug turned his gaze toward her, concern knitting his eyebrows together. She stood there, heart pounding harder than ever. I need to talk to you," she said, the words tumbling out before she could reconsider. Ryan's hand brushed against hers, a small gesture, but it felt like a lightning bolt igniting her resolve. But then, the reality of Doug's expression hit her like a jolt. The worry in his eyes mirrored her own fear. "Now?" he asked, glancing from her to Ryan and back again, sensing something was off. "Yeah, it's important," she managed, her breathing quickening as what was spread before her settled into reality, but just as she took a step forward to approach him, a familiar face cut through the crowd, a presence she hadn't seen in a while, but one she feared might alter everything in an instant. "What are you doing here?" she whispered under her breath, heart racing. The air suddenly felt heavy again with possibility and dread. Was this the moment everything would unravel, or perhaps the moment everything would finally come together? Sarah's heart raced as she recognized the face that had materialized through the crowd. It was Emily, an old friend whose unexpected arrival sent her spiraling. How had she found them here? Emily's eyes locked onto Sarah's, and the warmth in her smile faded into something questioning. "Hey! Long time no see!" Emily exclaimed, her voice cheerful but faltering when she noticed the tension surrounding Sarah and Ryan. Yeah, it has been a while," Sarah managed, her voice shaky. A part of her wanted to retreat, to pull Ryan back into the safety of their hidden conversation, but he stood his ground, casting a cautious glance toward Doug, who was still watching from a distance. "Is everything okay?" Emily asked, her brow furrowing slightly as she glanced between Sarah and Ryan. "Yeah, everything's fine," Sarah replied too quickly, her pulse thudding louder as she stole another look at Doug. His expression had shifted from concern to confusion, and that unsettled knot in her stomach tightened further. How could she explain this? "Okay," Emily said, studying her friend with a mix of suspicion and concern. "I just got back from a trip and heard this event was happening. Thought I'd come check it out." The irony of it all gnawed at Sarah. Here she was, standing at a precipice, ready to confront the potential unraveling of her life, while Emily's innocent presence threatened to derail her already tumultuous moment. "Sarah?" Doug called over, his voice breaking through her thoughts. He stepped toward them with a bewildered look. "Is something wrong? You look tense." Ryan moved slightly closer to her, a silent show of support, but it only made the tension thicker. She opened her mouth to explain, to confess that she had feelings for someone else right in front of someone she cared for deeply, yet the words tangled in her throat. "No. I mean everything is fine," Sarah said finally, forcing a smile. "Emily just surprised me." Doug's brows lifted, suspicion lingering in his eyes as he turned to Emily. "Hey, good to see you again." "You too, Doug," Emily chimed, but Sarah could see the glimmer of concern re-emerging in her eyes. This was getting more complicated by the second. Underneath the chatter and commotion of the event, Sarah felt like she was trapped in a bubble, spinning with uncertainty. She wanted to reach out to Doug, to tell him the truth, but fear of the repercussions sent icy fingers down her spine. "What did you need to talk about?" Doug finally asked, his voice steady as he focused intently on Sarah. "It's serious, right?" She took a deep breath, the weight of the moment pressing down heavily on her chest. She needed to find a way to make this conversation happen, but the presence of Emily turned the stakes even higher. Suddenly, a delicate touch grazed her arm, and she realized it was Ryan letting her know he was still there. "I'll be right here," he said quietly, his voice just a breath against her ear, laced with encouragement. Sarah felt the strength of that simple gesture, yet at the same time, it anchored her in a whirlpool of emotions. Did she really want to expose everything that lay beneath the surface? Can we talk somewhere private? She finally asked Doug, summoning every ounce of courage she could muster. It's important. Please. Sure, Doug replied, his expression unreadable. Let us step outside. As they moved toward the door, Sarah glanced back at Ryan and Emily. The faces dissolved into the crowd, both providing support and somehow creating more pressure. She felt like she was teetering on the edge of a precipice, a deep breath away from an emotional plunge. Outside, the cool night air hit her face and suddenly felt liberating, but her heart was still racing. She turned to Doug as the door swung closed behind them. Doug, there's something I have to. The words hung in the air, but a sudden noise pulled her attention. Footsteps raced past them, laughter echoing, oblivious to her turmoil. Something wasn't right. Behind her, Ryan stood in the doorway, watching closely. But Sarah's focus shifted again, as she saw a shadow approaching. Someone she never expected to see tonight. Let us step inside, the figure said, their voice cutting through her resolve. Her pulse quickened in dread. Could this night get any more complicated? Just then, the figure stepped forward, and Sarah's heart sank as she recognized him. It was Tom, her estranged brother who had chosen to walk away from the family years ago. Their eyes met, and Sarah's breath hitched as conflicting emotions tumbled within her, surprise, resentment, and an unsettling sense of dread. Sarah, we need to talk, Tom said, his voice low but urgently compelling. The last thing she wanted was to confront family issues when her heart was already teetering on the brink of chaos. Now's not a good time, Tom, she replied, her words laced with a mix of annoyance and confusion. But he stepped closer, the weight in his eyes revealing just how serious he was. It's about Mom. She's not well. In that moment, the world around her faded. The noise of the diner, the laughter of friends, all of it vanished, eclipsed by the reality of Tom's words. This was the last thing she could handle right now. Looking at Doug, she immediately saw concern knit across his brow. What do you mean? Sarah's voice trembled. Look, I'll explain everything, but first, you need to come home, he urged, glancing nervously toward the entrance of the diner. Pain washed over Sarah, a fresh wave echoing deep inside her. Home? The memories of what had driven them apart flooded her mind. Accusations, anger, silence. But now, there was something else intertwined with those feelings: her mother's image, frail and fragile, desperately needing help. The words hung unspoken. She felt torn between the responsibilities of family and the emotional hurricane brewing inside her. Distraction fluttered through her as Jake's laughter curled in the air from inside, mixed with Doug's comforting presence beside her. I can't just abandon everything, she managed weakly. It's your family, Tom insisted, urgency edging his voice. Just come with me. We can talk on the way. Even as every instinct fought against the rush of emotions, Sarah realized she had only moments to decide. She turned to Doug, his eyes burning with concern and confusion. I need to handle this, she said, feeling tears prick her eyes. Doug's face turned pale. Are you sure? This moment, too monumental to fight, made her heart ache with clarity. I am, but she looked back towards Ryan, still poised at the entrance. His hope lingered in the air, intensifying her internal struggle. Ryan stepped forward, breaking the silence. Sarah, if this is about family, I understand. Just promise you won't shut me out. Emotions twisted in her chest. She could sense the readiness to confront everything she had held back, but time was slipping away along with the opportunity to choose her future weightily. I can't promise anything right now, she whispered. But I need to see what's going on with Mom. With an urging nod, Sarah took one last glance at the life she had built at the diner: the laughter, the warmth, and the budding new beginning with Ryan. Each heartbeat screamed uncertainty, yet deep down a flicker of hope told her that she wouldn't be leaving those possibilities behind. Let us go, she said, her voice stealing as she turned toward Tom. As they moved away from the diner, a sudden rush of emotion hit her. Jake's voice, Doug's reassuring presence, the lingering magnetism of Ryan, all of them etched into her heart like fingerprints. Every step was weighed with uncertainty, yet somehow, she felt lighter. She had put family first for so long, maybe now, the chaos within had the potential to lead her into clarity. Tom's hurried words filled the silence as they stepped into the chilly air. "She needs us, Sarah. Both of us." As they disappeared into the gloom, her heart echoed with resolve. She would confront her family, face her brother after years of distance, and strive to mend the rift because somehow, deep within her, she knew that healing began at home. And at the end of this journey, she would find herself standing with Ryan, Jake, and Doug, stronger and whole. Together again would be their truth. Sarah felt it in her bones. But first, she had to take this step, out into the heavy rain of Maplewood towards something new. And somewhere deep inside, she realized that by confronting her past, she would finally set herself free to embrace a future painted with the colors of love and resilience. This is your moment to reach out and tell us how you feel. Hit that like button now if you felt Sarah's journey with her. Subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next heartfelt stories coming your way. Comment below your thoughts and reactions. How did this end speak to you? Don't wait not even one more second to share this with 5 friends who need to see how transformation is possible. Together, let's keep this community alive.